Violin music by Becca Greenouch. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. Following the Kirtland banking failure in 1836, Joseph Smith moved to Missouri. But the problems didn't stop in Kirtland. They followed him all the way there. Other leaders, such as the Whitmers, Oliver Cowdery, and even W.W. Phelps, would question Joseph's leadership. That led Sidney Rigdon, who was in the First Presidency, to issue the Salt Sermon, denouncing inside Mormons' complaints about Joseph Smith. It's a very important sermon, and we're going to talk more about the Salt Sermon and other things that happen in Missouri. Check out our conversation. How do we get to Haun's Mill then? Because that's really where I wanted to go with this. And by the way, I think there have been different spellings of Haun's Mill.
We can talk about that, yeah.
And why is it called Haun's Mill in the first place?
Okay, well, just to kind of lead you up to that, first of all, we have to say that really after 1836, things we begin moving in latter part of 1836. The county's created, actually signed into law by Lilburn W. Boggs on the 29th of December, 1836. It passed both the House and the Senate to create this county for us. And
now I've heard you call it the Mormon Reservation.
Well, it kind of almost is. They're kind of saying, okay, we're going to block off this chunk of land for the Mormons. And the expectation was, I mean, it was a gentleman's agreement, but the idea was if any Mormons come to Missouri, that's where they got to stay. That's where they got to live. But the point is, you can live anywhere you want. But the Latter-day Saints were grateful, and I think saw that as a temporary solution. But things deteriorate once we start getting up there, because number one, we begin moving into some other areas. We had some localities of pockets of Latter-day Saints elsewhere. Well, hold it, we weren't supposed to do that. The thing that I think probably triggered the animosity again was, well, several things, but one of them is, of course, Joseph Smith finally ends up, him and Sidney Rigdon, the First Presidency, coming to Missouri. All this time, headquarters have been in Kirtland. Boy, after when Joseph arrives, he arrives March 14th, 1838, him and Sidney. And boy, that sent a signal, Mormons are here to stay. This is their homeland. They want to settle this as Zion. I mean, we're not in Jackson County, but we're there in Missouri now, and that's the headquarters. So that they're worried a little bit about, again, political numbers. We start going outside in May. Joseph goes up to Daviess County, declares that this one area is Adam-on-the-Ammon. We begin settling up there. We purchase land down in Carroll County, a little community called DeWitt, start settling outside there. So that causes problems as well. And but Caldwell really worked out quite well for a couple of years there, and we had our own government. We even elected our own legislator to the Missouri legislature, John Correll, or Correll, however you want to say it. We could form our own militia. And boy, that we can defend ourselves if we have to. The problem is, of course, the descent that started in Kirtland comes to Missouri. And no sooner did Joseph Smith get there than within a month, Oliver Cowdery's excommunicated, David Whitmer's excommunicated. Just right before he came, W.W. Phelps was excommunicated, John Whitmer. These men stay in Missouri, stay in Far West. They cause problems. And McClellan's another one. And then unfortunately, of course, we have the rise of the Danite Company. And these men decide that we've got to get rid of these guys. We've got to cleanse the church. So these dissenters should not even be with us. We have the Salt Sermon of Sidney Rigdon, and it was a clear indication, you're not welcome here, and we'll help you move. And where do they go?
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that Salt Sermon, because Sidney used some interesting language in there.
He does.
It seems like it got turned around on him. Is that true?
Well, I think you're maybe confusing that a little bit with the July 4th sermon, but in the June sermon, what we call the, it is, I'm sorry, the June 17th, I believe it was, he gives the salt sermon.
1838?
1838. And that's where he says, you're no longer welcome. If the salt has lost its savor, it's no good but be trodden under by the foot of men. So he's taking that.
So he's going after Mormon dissenters.
Right.
These are the Whitmers, Oliver Cowdery.
Phelps himself. Frederick G. Williams has been causing problems.
What were these issues over?
We could be forever on that one. I will just say that there was enough dissent that these men were just causing problems. And Rick, we could not. I can see what's happening here, and that is simply this dissent that began was in Kirtland.
Kirtland with the bank, right?
With bank and other, yes, that's certainly a major focus there, and other aspects of Mormon leadership that others did not like. If we lost Far West, where would we go? There was Kirtland. We could set that out and say goodbye, but
because
we had no place to go.
There was no place after Kirtland.
There other than Far West, West, and that Joseph always. I think Joseph anticipated to eventually be there anyway, so he was more than happy to come. I mean, he saw that's okay. We have a safety valve. That's Far West. We lose Far West, it's curtains. Church was in a real strait there, and so they just couldn't handle this dissent. They couldn't have dissenters take over Far West, and that was in their, at least Sidney Rigdon more so than anybody. We had to nip that one in the bud. Joseph was supportive, obviously, but anyway, these dissenters were literally, you have a couple of days to leave. If you don't leave, we'll help you. They left.
So Oliver Cowdery as
and all the Whitmers,
and you get out of Missouri because we
get out of Caldwell.
Caldwell.
Yeah.
Okay.
They eventually, of course, all the Whitmers end up in Ray County. Well, what message does that send to the local Missourians? They're going, now hold it, weren't you guys once associated with the hierarchy of the church, Joseph Smith, Sidney Rigdon? Now you're down here. Boy, they must be pretty bad guys. Well, they're not bad guys. They just did what they felt was necessary to save the church. But that sent red flags to people like, oh boy, church leaders must be corrupt, so on and so forth. So all of these things are combining against the Latter-day Saints in northern Missouri. But again, what happens in August of 1838, Latter-day Saints living in Daviess County, a Gentile county, if you want to call it that, what do they want to do? They want to vote. So, but again, they're
supposed to be in a different county.
Yeah, they're not. This is not your county, So, and of course, the political Peniston up there in Gallatin is running for office, and he knows the Mormon. He's a Whig, and he knows the Mormons aren't going to vote for him. So he harangues them and says, gets the people there at the polls in August 6th, I think it was, and gets them all uptight and harangued, and gets them having some good old whiskey, and they were pretty well juiced up. And of course, we have a contentious activity as the Mormons tried to vote, and there was a knockout brawl. No one was killed. But word came to Joseph Smith and others that 2 Mormons were killed. And in that election day, they call it election day battle at Gallatin, but it was a brawl. There were some cracked skulls and broken jaws, and I mean, Mormons held their own. They can do it if they have to. And a couple days later, we hear, a short time later, we hear that there were some people killed. Joseph gets on a horse and goes up to Daviess County and up there and check it out. Unfortunately, no one was killed, but they go over to Adam Black, who's the justice of the peace up there, and says, Adam, you need to maintain the peace here. We have every right to be here, blah, blah, blah. So that begins we call that the beginning of the 1838 Mormon-Missouri War. We were obviously not going to get along with our neighbors even up there. And this just escalates, Rick. During the August and September, They begin to harangue Mormons up there. I mean, no one's killed, but they begin to, make sure that we're, I'm sure they did a few burnings. And,
Nobody's killed, but Joseph thought somebody was killed.
well, at least with the Election Day battle.
Right.
But things start just breaking down. It got so bad they had to call out the regional militia. And who's the regional militia commander for that regiment up there for the northwestern Missouri was none other than David Rice Atchison. He was the leading military officer of the state militia in this area. He goes up there with his sub-commanders. One of them is Donovan. They go up there and they actually get people to settle the peace. I mean, they actually, now you leave these Mormons alone. Mormons try to hang in there, but behave yourselves. And they realize, the antagonists up there, that this is not going to, we may not be able to get them here now, but we know where other places we can get them. They immediately transfer and go down to Carroll County, where this little Mormon community of DeWitt was, and said, we need to help these guys get these guys out. We may not get the Mormons out up in Daviess County. We certainly can't get them in Caldwell right now, but we can get these outlying settlements. They go down to DeWitt in Carroll County, and for 10 days they literally surrounded the Mormon community and starved them out. And Mormons finally capitulate and say, we'll leave. They go to Far West. Joseph petitions the Governor Boggs, and says, hey, you've got to come here. We are really getting picked on. And Governor Boggs says, hey, it's between the Mormons and the mobs. I can't call out the state militia for every one of these little uprisings. And Joseph and the church, they just say, hey, we've got to defend ourselves. So they send a clear message. They go up in mid-August. They go up to Daviess County, and they went after the bad guys, the perpetrators, the ringleaders, and they sent a clear message. I mean, they burned.
Mormons burned.
Mormons burned. Yeah, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do.
I understand.
This was tough times, and Jacob's Stoling Store. They burned Millport. They burn Gallatin. They burn Millport. They go to the Three Forks. And they pick out the ringleaders and said, we've had enough. Quit pushing us.
Okay. Let me just summarize here. So
Okay.
let's just say here. So Mormons have been tarred and feathered in Jackson County, get kicked out of Jackson County. They get kicked out of Caldwell County.
Well, no. We're kicked out. We're forcibly removed from Jackson. We're more politically removed from Clay County.
Oh, from Clay County.
That was
to move to Caldwell County.
To move to Caldwell County, and now they're starting to pick on us up in Daviess County.
Because we're not staying in the Mormon reservation.
Well, we've already gone up there. We've gone, in their minds, we violated the gentleman's agreement.
Right.
But, you can settle anywhere you want. But again, they're worried for Mormons coming in. And,
okay.
And then,
we've been kicked out of Jackson,
Clay. They're trying on Daviess. Now they go down to Carroll County and kick out 400 Mormons.
Yeah, Carroll. Okay, so we've been kicked out of 4 different counties.
Yeah.
And now this is when Mormons finally say, okay, we're going to take matters in our own hands.
Yep.
We're going after you. And so they burned some settlements in Gallatin.
Yep. Didn't kill anybody. Didn't want to hurt anybody. They plundered them and said, this is we'll keep the spoils of war. They felt like they've been mistreated. They had. They had. No question. And then Joseph comes back. Now, Joseph wasn't even in any of those companies. He was up there at Adamantine, but he did not do any
plundering.
He wasn't there. I mean, he was there, but he wasn't there.
Right.
He comes back down, and this is when Lyman White just goes ballistic. And he says, you know what? It's time that we just expel every non-Latter-day Saint in Daviess County. And, Rick, that's what they did. They would go to their homes, these Mormon men, and I would have to say they're Danites. Lyman White's the head of them up there. And this is illegal. Of course it is. But they've had it up to here. I don't know.
But Boggs won't do anything about theirs.
If Boggs would have stepped in a little bit and come to the scene of action and said, okay, what's going on here? Let's settle this. But he's just leaving it up. To the locals. I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs. Well, they go up there after Joseph's backed down, and they just went from house to house and said, "You got 24 hours to leave. Thank you very much. Get out of here, or we'll let you know." Well, where do these guys go? They go over to Livingston County, which is just to the east. They cleanse Daviess County of non-Latter-day Saints. I mean, they're gone. During this time, Sam Bogart down in Ray County, just south of Caldwell, goes, "Man, maybe they'll come down and burn us out." Well, we had no intention of doing that, but he patrols along the southern line of the Caldwell County, northern Ray, southern Caldwell, takes 3 Mormons prisoners. I think he was baiting the Mormons, quite frankly, and takes them, and just a company of 35, 40 men, camps on the right at the edge of Caldwell and Ray County. Messages get back to Far West that he's got 3 Mormon prisoners, and he's going to kill them. So what does David Patton do? He says, we gotta go rescue those guys. And this guy's my heavens, he was called Captain Fear Not. I mean, he's a tough guy. You don't mess with him.
He was the president of the Quorum of 12, wasn't he?
No, it was Marsh. But Marsh.
Oh, it was Marsh. That's right.
Yeah, Marsh at this point.
Second in line.
Yeah, at this point in time, actually, Marsh is actually going to post an affidavit with Orson Hyde saying, well, the Mormons are doing stuff and we don't approve of it. I mean, this gets Marsh and Orson Hyde in trouble, and they're going to be, well, Marsh is going to be excommunicated and Hyde will be later
reinstated.
Yeah, well, he never lost his position in the quorum because he repented and came back. But anyway, Bogart takes these 3 men. Patton picks up 60 to 75 men, something like that. I've got the numbers, but they go down to rescue him. Of course, shots are fired, and 3 Mormons are killed, including Patton. And we get our 3 prisoners back, but 3 of our men are killed. We killed a man by the name of Moses Rowland, and a guy by the name of Wiley Williams, a Missourian, immediately is dispatched to Governor Jefferson City to go see Governor Boggs and tells him that the entire company of Bogart was massacred by the Mormons.
Oh boy.
And this is when Governor Boggs goes, "We've received news of alarming nature. The Mormons are enemies."
He wasn't alarmed before that, apparently.
Yeah, well, again, he got the misreport.
Yeah.
But now he's going, we got to nip this one in the bud. And this is when he now says the Mormons must be exterminated, or in other words, driven from the state. Now, we didn't talk about the
Sidney Rigdon.
Sidney Rigdon July 4th speech, but he does use that term. The Mormons, it will be a war of extermination. Don't come against us. We're entitled to be here. But if you do, we've got the numbers now to defend ourselves. Well, we really didn't. But, I mean...
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So July 4th, this is 1838?
Yep.
July 4th, Sidney gives a very interesting sermon.
Yeah. It's a great sermon. I mean, you could have given it at the Provo Freedom Festival, but that he appeals to the foundations of the government and religious liberty and so on and so forth. And then, very end, he just becomes vitriolic and says, we are not going to. We will defend ourselves. Now, the Missourians took that as a declaration of war.
He uses the word.
He used the words exterminate. I have to admit, he does. And in that terminology,
there will be a war of extermination.
Yeah, it's either us or you. Mm-hmm. And I think he was, way too grandiose. I mean, we didn't have those numbers.
Okay, so was this before or after this battle to free the 3?
This was in July, so this is now October. This is October 24th, 25th. So all these events have happened, which I talked about.
So July 4th, Sidney gives this speech that includes a war of extermination between the Mormons and their enemies.
Yeah. And again, the Mormons were basically saying, just leave us alone. The Missourians said, the Mormons are coming after us. Well, we weren't coming after anybody, but they took that as a declaration of war, no question. And then we have the August 6th Election Day battle. And then during the month of August and September, Missourians up there in Daviess County are picking on the Mormons. It got so bad they had to call out the regional militia to go up there and settle things.
That's when Atchison came.
Yeah, Atchison gets up there, Donovan goes up there and says, you Missourians, leave these Mormons alone. And they basically slapped them around, telling them, you leave them alone. And Mormons try to be good Mormons, And then the ringleaders up there say, okay, we can't get them in Caldwell. Obviously, they're too big there. We can't get them up here. We've just been slapped around by the regional militia. We can't do this. They go down to Carroll County and incite the locals down there to expel the Mormon community in DeWitt. And that's when Joseph says, okay, the governor's not going to do anything for us. And when I say Joseph, I should say we have militia leaders, but they go up there and basically send the message to the ringleaders, the perpetrators, we're not taking any guff anymore. And when Bogart hears that, and then Joseph comes back down, but Lyman Wight says, let's just make sure everybody leaves. Well, it's our turn to kick everybody out. Which again, I think that's a sad thing. But
okay, so there's definitely some disputes going on here. So Marsh wasn't on board. Hyde.
Yeah, Hyde wasn't on board. Yeah, and that's where they say goodbye.
Okay.
They exit. Yeah.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Alex Baugh. In our next conversation, we're going to tackle the extermination order. Did that give Missourians the right to kill Mormons?
He says, I issued the extermination order to prevent the effusion of blood. I don't want people killed. I want them removed so we don't have to do more extreme measures. So I'm just absolutely convinced and yet so many Latter-day Saints think that the extermination order was a legal order to kill.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please support Gospel Tangents and become a subscriber. For just $5 a month, go to patreon.com/gospeltangents and you can hear the entire interview. And you can also get transcripts available at either our Amazon website, or if you want to give the money to me and not Amazon, please subscribe on my website at gospeltangents.com and you can click the yellow subscribe button. Of course, we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other places. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. And don't forget to click here to subscribe on YouTube, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again for listening.